we just have a few minutes before we go to a quick break, but John Katzimatidis, your perspective of what happened, and who do you think won, who do you think lost? Was there a winner or loser?
I would give it 55-45 in favor of Trump. I think she did a lot better than I expected her to do. But she doesn't have any real facts. I think she had a sheet with what she wanted to say, and it just said it.
Yeah, it seemed like she was kind of repeating the lines over and over and over again. Ed Cox, GOP chair, highlights, lowlights.
Yeah, she was very slick and she had her lines down. He dealt with the major points and drove them home. That is, she is responsible for the terrible inflation that has destroyed the people of paycheck to paycheck. That's 2/3 of the voters. With respect to the border, he drove home that also, with the fact that the number of illegal immigrants and the problems they're causing all around the country. And he drove home the point about wars abroad. While he was president, there was peace abroad.
Governor David Patterson.
Well, former President Trump was able to mix in his, sort of attacks along with talking about some of the programs that he thought were very successful. At some points, I thought he was falling apart. It reminded me of the testimony of Captain Queeg. But in a lot of ways, what you come away from this debate, and this debate really was about whether or not Kamala Harris is a viable presidential candidate. I think that she proved that she is, even if you don't agree with 75% of what she said, the way she was able to articulate it, the way she was able to sustain it through the long period of time, I thought I was very impressed with her.
And Dominic Carter, your quick thoughts.
I'll make it as quick as I can. It's one of the worst debates I've ever seen in my life. There are maybe 20 journalists alive that have done major debates with major candidates. I'm one of them, having done the Hillary Clinton debate. The executive producer for David Muir was my executive producer. David Muir confirmed the worst thoughts of what I thought about him tonight. My thoughts going in, I'm going to be honest with you, Rita, was that he was just another pretty boy. And he confirmed it. There was no substance. He lost control from the very beginning. He mispronounced Trump or Biden's name. It was a disaster. And it was 3 against 1. And this is going to lead to a million conspiracies. It was awful. They didn't make her answer a single question of substance. She pivoted on everything and used all her time to attack Trump. It just wasn't fair.
Where I thought you were going to go, Dominic Carter, was that there was no fact checked on her. Did you notice that? She got away with everything she said. And every time Trump said something that they didn't agree with, they debated him. And I'm talking about David Muir and Lindsay Davis, especially David Muir. This is a guy who hosts ABC World News Tonight. By the way, there was a poll that just came out, and it said among the big three, ABC, NBC, and CBS, guess what? Their coverage of Kamala Harris was 98% positive, and they got the worst numbers in terms of being any favorable to Trump prior to this debate. I would say after this debate, it's 100. Anthony Weiner, we just have a few seconds before we go to a break because we're going to have a lot more, but your thoughts?
I think Kamala Harris came across as presidential and competent and pleasant. And I agree with the internet. The internet is made up of people right now who think Kamala Harris won and Republicans who are complaining about the moderators. That tells you how the debate went.
Well, the facts speak for themselves. We're going to get into them in a minute. It sounded like they were parroting some of the points you said earlier, like you got the little talking points. We're going to go to a break, everybody, and we're going to have a lot more ahead on the special edition of The Rita Cosby Show. We have an awesome live studio audience and the best panel ever. Much more on the big debate right after the break. And we are continuing our live special coverage of The Rita Cosby Show nationwide, based out of the great 77 WABC, owned by Red Apple Audio Network, with the great John and Margot Katzimatidis, the great dynamic duo. Anthony Weiner, sorry, we just had a little bit. Of course, former Congressman, Democrat, spirited Democrat at that. What would you give her in terms of this debate? Because I'd give her, she got a free pass. Dominic Carter and I were just talking. I thought the moderators were so blatantly stilted. They challenged him and did not challenge her. And I thought it looked like they were in her pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think they challenged him, and they also gave him extra time. He kept getting the extra 30 seconds, and she didn't ask because I think she realized she was benefiting when he was talking. Look, a lot of this, again, these are not for partisans, but the atmospherics who looked presidential. He was scowling. He was bent over. She was smiling. She seemed... Look, I don't know if a lot of minds get changed, but for the handful of independent people who wanted to see if she was up to the job, I think she passed that test. And for the handful of people who still haven't made up their mind about Donald Trump, that was Donald Trump. Like him or don't like him, it's a scowling guy who used his closing statement of a big debate to basically go back to stuff you already said. No forward-looking
Hang
message.
on a second, though. Anthony Weiner, the big issue he kept going back to was open borders and crime.
Yes.
And I found it actually really distasteful. There were a couple moments. She was smirking. She finally said the word fentanyl. I haven't heard that out of her mouth. And it's taken her 3.5 years to even say the word fentanyl. And when he talked about the Afghanistan withdrawal, 13 U.S. service members killed, she was smirking. That was disgusting, Anthony Weiner. And the moderator should have said, "Why are you smiling?" That's what I would have said. Dominic Carter and I have done many a debate. I would have looked at her and said, "Could we just go back to your smile when he's talking about XML?"
I've never heard a moderator refer to someone smile. In
Well,
my
they
life
should
of
have in
watching
this
debates.
case. Don't you think that's distasteful of your candidate?
I don't know what to... Look, you want to relitigate the debate?
I don't think-
haven't heard...
Guess what? It just happened. So yes.
All right, if you want to relitigate the debate, you guys both used your opening remarks to focus on the moderator. You obviously don't have much positive to say about Trump. He has a lousy job. We were literally laughing at him in this room.
Well, that is not the case, actually. Quite frankly, room, were they laughing? I think Anthony Weiner's wrong. Yeah, Ed Cox, bring us back to reality, because Anthony Weiner is obviously in a little hole. Go ahead.
I think Anthony, he's got one thing. That is that she talked like a president, but when you take a look at what she's actually done, what the administration that she's a part of has done, and the problems are huge. The fact is, this is a third Obama-Biden-Harris term. Third terms don't work out. The old ideas like, oh, let's appease Iran does not work. Let's take them one by one. I'll take one now. And he raised that point and and hit it hard, and he should have. And that is, he had tight sanctions on Iran. Iran's foreign currency was near zero. It skyrocketed under the Obama-Biden-Harris regime because they lifted the sanctions and they got more than $100 billion in foreign currency. And that's why the Houthis are beating up the shipping out of the Suez Canal and through the Red Sea. And that is why Hamas had the ability to attack Israel with that terrible attack on October 7th. And that is why Hezbollah has 150 really vicious missiles that are pointing at Israel now, and Israel has to deal with all those problems. That's all on Obama, Biden, Harris, and their third term, where they're just following the old script and it ain't working. This is a tough world and you need a tough president to deal with it. And Donald Trump, with respect to this issue, I'll go over other ones too, drove that home very hard. That's why he should be president.
And John Catsimatidis, we literally have about 10, 15 seconds before we got to go to a hard break. She actually said Trump is weak on foreign policy.
Well, I did expect Donald Trump to be better than he was.
You did. You thought he would step up. Do you agree, Ed Cox, real quick?
No, I agree. He did what he had to do, and that was to drive home his major points in a way that people will not forget. People will forget what she said because she said it so slickly. She talked, but...
And we're going to have to go to a break. We're going to keep talking right after the break. Everybody, much more ahead on The Rita Cosby Show in a moment. And welcome to the special edition of The Rita Cosby Show. We are broadcasting live, of course, from our home base, the WABC radio studio, Studio 77, with an awesome live audience tonight as we've been watching the debate. And boy, what a debate it was. It's the first time that Kamala Harris and President Trump have been face to face. She did shake his hand. John, you and I were talking about that earlier. She went over and shook his hand. That was an interesting moment. But the rest of the time, he looked forward and she kind of smirked. What did everybody think of the debate? Well, we have the best analysis anywhere. We continue this hour with our great panel. We have the owner and operator of Red Apple Media Network, the great John Catsimatidis, one of the best business people in the entire globe, along with his great wife, Margot Catsimatidis. Also, New York State Chair Ed Cox, former Democratic chair for the state of New York, and also the former governor of New York, the great David Patterson. We love having him here. Also, former New York Congressman Anthony Weiner. And we also have with us Dominic Carter, a great host here at WABC Radio and TV.
Can I bring you some breaking news?
You go ahead, Anthony
Taylor
Weiner.
Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris.
What a surprise. Taylor Swift, I think, endorsed her about 3.5 years ago.
Don't mess the Swift.
What about the migrants? What about all the migrants,
Hold
the
on,
8
it
to
says here
20
the
million?
migrants endorsed Trump.
Yeah,
Migrants
I
endorsed
don't
Trump.
think so. You're watching Russian disinformation. All right, so let's go to Dominic Carter. Dominic, highlights, lowlights. Your thoughts?
I wasn't impressed at all with the vice president. I have a new nickname for her, Mr. Weiner. Effective today, she is candidate internet. That's what she is, because what we witnessed from her, Rita, was her with these pre-canned horrible lines that some writer gave her. When he says this, you can make the internet with this response. The moderators actually let her pivot to talk about Trump crowd size when we don't know what her plan is as the president of the United States on anything. And they let her get away. It was the worst. If I was David Muir, I would be in a depression for the next 6 months. It was the worst debate moderator performance. He broke format in the first 2 minutes. It was supposed to be, Rita, question, 2-minute question, 2-minute rebuttal, 1 minute final rebuttal. He gave them each a 1-minute rebuttal like 5 times on the first question. He was not ready for prime time. David Muir, with all due respect to a colleague, he should never do a presidential debate again. It was awful.
I agree. It was terrible. What do you guys think? I agree with Dominic. I thought he was so bad. Yeah, exactly. We do need Bernard Shaw. He would have done a better job. I knew Bernie. He was great. By the way, look at also the topics. The topics were January 6th. They didn't get to a flip-flopping question about Kamala Harris, and boy, there's like a mountain long of it. I looked at it. It wasn't until 9:40, so 40 minutes into the debate, they finally had an epiphany and said, let's talk about your flip-flopping, and now let's kind of move on. And they did not go back and forth with her. Ed Cox, I agree. I think it was disgraceful. The question is, did Trump do a good job? Because sometimes he's done a good job going back at the moderator. He did get in there when they kept trying to cut him off. But your thoughts, was it enough?
That's not really the look. He's a businessman. He keeps his eye on the bottom line. In business, it's the bottom line, profit or loss. In politics, it's the votes. The votes are with the economy, and that's about inflation and about the profligate. They believe in modern monetary theory. Deficits don't count. And they ran inflation up to 9% in a year and a half, in their first year and a half. And the people, the 2/3 of the people who live paycheck to paycheck, their wages didn't go up nearly that much. And the result is they are all hurting. They are hurting, and that's why Trump is ahead with respect to the economy, and people trust him more with the economy because he had low inflation and high wages. It's a bottom line, and he brought that home about inflation in a way that people will remember it, and they will still vote for him because that is the determining thing. It's the economy, stupid, and it's about inflation. He had low inflation, high wages. They had high inflation, lower wages. That's it.
Let me bring in John Catsimatidis, the great businessman. John, we were talking earlier on Katz and Cosby about the economy. I thought Trump had some good points where he said, because the moderators didn't bring it out, that suddenly the job numbers changed. Remember, by 818,000. And then he also talked about how flush Iran is. That's something I know you're very passionate about how much money Iran has right now.
Well, President Trump will make a better president, and he hasn't changed on my mind on that. Kamala, I think it'd be very hard for her to run the country. And you would have to trust the same people that are running President Biden's campaign from behind the scenes, the puppeteers. The same puppeteers will be running Kamala's campaign, and they haven't done that good of a job. We are on the verge of war. I interviewed a senator from Iowa the other day. She says she just came back from the Middle East, and she met with very senior people in the Arab world, and they have lost confidence in Washington. We talk about the deficit. The deficit, in my opinion, could be 40 trillion if there is confidence in the United States of America. And right now, it doesn't seem like President Biden has a clue. It doesn't seem that Vice President Kamala has a clue either. So President Trump knows what's going on, knows what has to be done, and he is well respected around the world.
Governor David Patterson, that's a powerful point. She kept trying to flip the script. Was she effective at all in flipping the script? Making it sound like the world doesn't respect Trump and she's the great commander in chief.
Well, I think she was pretty passionate about, her feelings for the former president and also the issues that she thinks were sustained by the Biden administration. Like any vice president that ever runs for president and the president's still in office, you kind of have to be careful that...
Is he still in office? We haven't seen him. I'm not sure.
But he's at the beach.
Oh, that's right. He's at the beach. That's right.
And but I thought in terms of trying to get her message across that she did it very well. And she was, pretty strong on some of these issues. I think she's got to watch her personal decorum because for some reason she thinks that when she scowls and does these things that everyone's agreeing with her. It's not really a good look for a candidate.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dominic Carter. Just from an aesthetic standpoint, the smirking and the expressions, he looked straight on. I don't think there was barely ever a time he looked at her. Talk about the difference in styles.
We're not talking about somebody running for a community school board. We're talking about the president of the United States of America. And if you're going to make those facial expressions, what are you going to do when Putin basically shows you the door?
You're talking about Kamala Harris, obviously.
Yes, Kamala Harris. It's just, this was a tremendous blown opportunity. They did not hold her feet to the fire on anything. They would ask a good question and she would pivot 15 seconds in and Trump, and they let her get away with it. They let her, again, pivot from, she went to focus on crowd size, and they let her get away with it. When the moderator sort of said, excuse me, Madam Vice President, what we're asking you about, the same way they did Trump, we're asking you, what are your specific policies? So people like Mr. Weiner, they're very happy because they know that she has no substance backing her up, and she wasn't asked anything of substance, Rita, and so they're happy this evening. But I'm telling you, the American people are not stupid. They saw the same things that I saw.
The other thing I thought was a powerful moment, to your point, Dominic Carter, and John, I'm curious your thoughts about this. There was a moment where he pointed out, and he said, she bailed out the rioters in the summer of 2020 in the Minnesota Freedom Fund. And she said visibly on camera, it wasn't her turn, said, that's not true. And nobody went back. None of the moderators, they let her get away with it. Let's just say it for what it is, Anthony Weiner. That was a lie. John, did they give her a free pass?
Anthony Weiner, and then I don't get.
Yeah, we're going to get you in a moment. Go ahead. We're going to go to John first. Go ahead, John. Your thoughts on that?
Anthony, the problem is the moderators. They won't let you talk. I think it's an outrage.
Now you got this moderator. Go ahead,
And,
John Katsimatidis. Go ahead, John.
Basically, I did think that the moderators were tougher on President Trump, and they gave her a pass all the way.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Go ahead, Anthony. Go ahead.
Listen, Donald Trump was in this debate, and he was asked some very easy questions that he blew. He was asked, are you on Ukraine's side? Just say yes. America's on Ukraine's side.
She wasn't asked easy questions?
Hold on a second. Let me just finish my point. He was asked, "Would you sign a national abortion ban?" Just say no if the answer is no. He would not answer. He was said,
She
"You want to
wouldn't
get rid
completely
of
answer on the abortion question either. It's just that I can't take it, Anthony. I'm sorry.
By the way, Anthony, he's already said for
But
the
he
record
was-
he would not have a national abortion ban. Maybe if you got the wax out of your ears, you'd figure that out.
I don't.
He said it a million times
He was
already.
asked in this debate 3 times. He refused to say it. He was asked, "What side are you on? Do you want Ukraine to win?" Just say yes. You're American. You're an American.
Guess
We
what
want
she
Ukraine-
said on Israel? Hang on a
Okay.
second. About Israel,
Okay.
though. On Israel, in
right,
fairness,
I
when it came
guess I
to
said
Israel,
enough.
she said, yes, we support Israel, but now let's go back to Gaza. Now let's, by the way, the moderators missed a moment not asking about the protesters. Did you notice that too, Anthony?
Are you
That would
happy
have been
tonight,
interesting.
Anthony? Are you happy tonight?
What can I say? Pig and poop.
you got your way.
I am doing fine.
3 against
I am
1.
doing
You got
fine
your way.
because there are 5. Well, how many people were 6 up here? We all know what happened tonight, and it was bad for Trump. That's why you're not talking about Trump. You're talking about the moderators, and you're talking about Kamala Harris's expressions. This was a bad night for your guy, and all she had to do was look presidential. And your guy was just himself. He could not contain himself. He was scowling. He was angry, and just say yes. We're on Ukraine's side. He basically fessed up to inviting the Taliban to Camp David on the anniversary of September 11th. He was unprepared.
You're
for
not
this
going to
debate.
go into Afghanistan because that was one of the most disgraceful periods. And I'll go back to what I said
Let's go
before
to
the
the
break.
debate, though, Rita.
Hang on one
He
second.
did
We
a
are
terrible job on
we're
that.
going.
He was saying, I got a list
we're
of things, and
going.
they didn't
Hold
do
on a
this.
second, please. Hold on a second. If you want to host the show, you can do another one. But this is my show. Here, what we're talking about here is the fact at this moment in this debate, she was asked about the Afghanistan withdrawal. She pivoted. And she blamed it on Trump. And then when Trump talked about the 13 U.S. service members killed, she smirked. That is a very, very sad moment. Ed Cox, your thoughts?
Look, she dodged every big question that the voters care about. Peace in the Mideast. She dodged the questions about Afghanistan and certainly about Iran and how they reflated Iran so it could cause all the trouble it's caused in the Mideast. Also, with respect to inflation, she dodged that. That is the major issue for 2/3 of the voters who live paycheck to paycheck, and their paychecks are worth 5% to 15% less, and they got to take something out of their grocery basket that they really wanted. They are angry, and this is his focusing on the votes. The third thing that she dodged was issues about illegal immigration. She wouldn't touch that. He did. He drove that home, and that is the third issue on which people will vote. And that's why he's going to win a significant win come November.
Dominic Carter, she also smirked when he was saying migrant crime like it doesn't exist. We have a few seconds. Your thoughts? There were some moments there that were very, I thought if you're an American and you're watching what we're all seeing, her expression was like, what migrant crime?
Right. You're exactly right, Rita. She was asked a question about migrants. She talked about it for 5 seconds. Pivot. Trump for the next minute and a half. The chair is right. She didn't answer a single question. That's why my Democratic friends are happy, because she was not forced to answer any policy questions.
Yeah, it's called Skirt, Skirt, Skirt. Everybody, we're going to take a quick break. Much more ahead with this awesome panel here on this very special edition of The Rita Cosby Show. And the big question is, how much does this debate matter? Did it change any minds? Well, I'm sure tens of millions of people watch it, not just on the broadcast, but also online, listen to it here also on all of our stations across the country. Let's continue. John Katzimatidis. John, where do you think it goes from here? I mean, where do you think the race goes? And boy, it's only a few weeks, but that's a lifetime in politics.
I think the Kamala campaign is saying that they will do more debates, and they'll probably do more debates. And I think they're really going to take out the fists next time.
Yeah, you think she'll take out the fist. Will Trump change a little bit of his strategy, John? What do you think? I mean, do you think he'll say, of course, yes. He's already said, I'll do it anytime, anywhere.
Well, I was a little bit disappointed in his performance tonight. And I think he should change a little bit.
What would you say? John, you have followed politics for a long time. Everybody looks to you. What do you think?
What do I think? At the end of the day, I still think that President Trump is much more qualified to be president than Kamala Harris.
At the end of the day. at the end of the day. What do you think, Governor David Patterson? Your thoughts on, do you think they'll both do debates and will they change?
I was surprised that President Trump did not act more presidential. He's had a lot going in his direction for a little period of time. He didn't do that. He kind of went right back in the, in the pit and slugged it out. And I think really people were, particularly since he ran the country before, they were ready to hear what his vision would be for the future. And he didn't really go into any detail about that. But what I will say is I thought that Vice President Harris got away with talking about the small businesses and said that she wants to cut the red tape to help the small businesses. Well, the statistics are that $50,000 per home were lost in regulations over small businesses, and that for her to get away with that, I was really surprised that he didn't seize that moment.
Yeah, or the moderators who seemed to correct him on every single point. I mean, the other thing, too, were the questions. The questions were clearly geared. I mean, we saw January 6th questions. And again, the questions about her flip-flopping seemed to come very thin and few in between. Everybody, we're going to go to another break here. And when we come back, we're going to continue with this great analysis here with Anthony Weiner, Governor Patterson, Ed Cox, John Catsimatidis, we love having you, and Dominic Carter. Back in a break. And we continue live here with the Rita Cosby Show, our special post-debate coverage. Boy, oh boy, the debate had some highlights. It had some lowlights. It had a lot of questions from the moderators that were going after Trump and very little to Kamala Harris. We continue here live with New York GOP Chair Ed Cox. We also have former New York Democratic Chair and also former Democratic New York Governor David Patterson. And we also have former New York Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner. Anthony, you were just saying at the break, too, CNN was saying the fact check. Give us the numbers, because that was interesting.
CNN did a fact check, 33 lies that Trump said, 1 Harris. I just want to...
Wait. Hang on one second, just for the listeners again.
I don't have any more than
but
that.
But it was
though.
like 33. They said that Trump lied and 1 Harris.
Correct.
What debate were they watching? Ed Cox, come on.
They're watching. Can I just make...
Yeah, go ahead
make a
after
quick
that.
point? So we kind of, at the intro, Dominic made a very good point that Donald Trump had to keep his anger and his aggression under check, and that Kamala Harris was going to get all the attention because she was least known. And both of those things, Harris did well. I think that Donald Trump bit the bait when, Kamala Harris baited him clearly at crowd size. We know how obsessed Donald Trump is with crowd size, and he bit the bait. He went in there and spent a couple of minutes wasting his time talking about that. And Kamala Harris, you can say that she smirked or whatever, but she was command. Every answer was tight. Every answer was timed to exactly 2 minutes. And as far as all the concern on moderators, I want to point out that 6 times tonight, Donald Trump got the extra 30 seconds.
Because he needed it.
Go whatever. If you really had a moderator that was really against him, they would have said, no, you can't talk with the microphones. We're going to turn them off. They didn't do that. So I think Kamala Harris's strategy was let Donald Trump dig his own problems with things about eating cats and lie like a dog and talking about Joe Biden incessantly. Joe Biden, I want to alert the media about this. Joe Biden is not the candidate. And if you're talking about someone who's not on stage, you're not doing a very good job. That's why Democrats are very happy tonight.
Your thoughts, Ed Cox. One of the things I thought was interesting, and to Anthony's point, he did kind of go back to Biden a lot. I think his point was to lump Biden with Kamala Harris because she wants to make it sound like she suddenly just popped on this earth and she's a brand new candidate. His point was to say she's been there 3.5 years. It's the Biden-Harris administration, and she owns the failures of the Biden-Harris administration. Did he make that case effectively, GOP Chair Ed Cox?
Not only did she inherit them, she was actually involved in them. I mean, she said to the Russians 5 days before they invaded, don't. And they did. That seems to be the favorite phrase of the Biden administration.
She didn't meet the Russians, Ed. I just want to make that clear.
No, but she said it's not that she met with them.
Okay.
She said don't.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
they were
he's saying
about
the
to
message.
invade.
Right.
Yeah, she didn't meet the. That was one of the lies that Donald Trump told. I just didn't want you to repeat it.
All right, go ahead, Ed.
I
Go
wasn't
ahead.
repeating that. I was saying what she said. That's all. She said don't invade. And they did. It's very simple. So she was involved in that. With respect to Afghanistan, she was the last person to talk with the president about it. And guess what? Against all advice, for purely political reasons, so that they could announce on 9/11, the 20th anniversary, that they got all the troops out of Afghanistan for purely political. They pulled all the troops out. And she was the last, and that was a huge mistake on their part. And that preceded by 3 months the Russians' invasion of Ukraine. So she's responsible for that too. So it's not just, she can't deny that she was involved actually in all these major decisions. And unfortunately, she had as her president someone who Obama said that give old Joe something, he's sure to F it up. And that is true. That's what he's done with respect to immigration, with respect to inflation, with respect to peace around the world, with respect to the invasion of Ukraine, and with respect to what Iran is doing in the Mideast. On all those things, he has indeed effed it up, and she's responsible for it.
Anthony Weiner, and then I want to go
Well,
to Governor
I think
Madison.
as he came out in debate, it was Donald Trump who released 5,000 Taliban fighters. It wasn't Joe Biden. It was Donald Trump that drew down our troops to 2,500 with no plan for what the transition would look like. It was Donald Trump who set up the schedule for us to leave Afghanistan. It was Donald Trump who said we'll have all of our troops out by Christmas. Talk about doing things for political reasons. Donald Trump left Afghanistan a complete mess, and Joe Biden did what Donald Trump could not do. And that is, he pulled our troops out.
Anthony, you're
That's
wrong.
the fact. As far as what Kamala Harris's role was in Russia, Ukraine. Let me just make this very clear because Donald Trump lied about it during the debate. Kamala Harris did not meet with the Russians. Kamala Harris met with Zelensky to tell Zelensky rather how much danger they were in and to commit our support, something Donald Trump won't do. This is the same Zelensky who they withheld armaments under the Trump administration. He got impeached for that. So I don't know why Donald Trump
And
does
he
not
gave
support
them javelins.
I
And
don't know.
guess what?
No, he withheld them.
Can I say one thing?
He withheld them and
have,
was impeached
actually,
for it.
no. I don't know. I said eventually he gave them
Yes,
javelins.
eventually.
That is correct.
That's
all
right. He was impeached.
So-
He was impeached for that.
But-
Why he would not say?
No, he did not. Was not impeached. What happened was the Obama, Biden, Harris administration gave clothes, uniforms to the Ukrainians.
Donald Trump was indeed
Donald Trump
impeached.
gave the javelins that stopped the Russians when they tried to take Kyiv.
And Donald Trump
you
was
got to give him
impeached
full credit for that.
impeached.
If you're not giving that, you're not paying attention to the
Donald
facts.
Trump was impeached for not supporting Ukraine.
Actually, you know who should have
And
been.
he wouldn't do it tonight either.
Wait a second. No, he was not impeached for that. What he was impeached for a technicality, and Pelosi was just covering up the fact that it was Vice President Biden who called off the prosecutor, said, you don't get $1 billion unless you fire the prosecutor who's going after the company that is paying my son $1 million. That's corruption at the highest level in the
He
government.
was impeached by a bipartisan vote of Congress.
And you clearly have no problem with that. I mean, she brought it up tonight, by the way. I found an interesting moment where she brought up and she said the lawfare, the weaponization. And I don't think there's any American who is listening to this show across the country right now who doesn't think that the deck was clearly stacked against President Trump. I mean, you can't tell me the 34 counts that came out of New York. You just had the top spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York caught on tape saying if it wasn't Trump, this wouldn't have happened. That actually confirms what we all believe. And she makes it seem like every single one of these cases against Trump was bona fide. He's the criminal. He's the this, and they had nothing to do with it. Ed Cox, that is actually a distinct lie because we have somebody
We
here.
had a jury of his peers.
Hang on,
No,
a jury of
they-
his peers in New York City,
You
which
don't
is
support a jury system? What system
I
do you
do,
prefer?
but New York City, where they clearly have the votes against Trump. Go ahead, Ed Cox.
Yeah, good luck on that one.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, a New York jury.
Yeah, New York jury,
yeah.
right. You have the U.S. Attorney
Look,
spokesperson, the
that-
highest
that-
person in New York saying that.
That whole indictment was so stitched together, it was like a Frankenstein, that the Bragg didn't have anyone in his own office who could put that together. They had to have Mr. Coangelo come down from the Department of Justice. Incidentally, just 3 weeks after Trump declared that he was running for president. That's when everything happened, including the visit of Fonnie Willis's lover to the White House, including Coangelo going down to join Bragg. And by the way, it was Coangelo who gave the opening statement, even though his cover for going down there was he was going down there as an expert on labor and on other things other than something to do with Trump. But he delivered the opening statement. He's the only one who could understand it. It was so complicated.
I guess it's all a coincidence, all the timing, right, Ed Cox? Let's get in Governor Patterson. Your thoughts about all of these, the sort of her smirking when it came to lawfare, as if, this is all just credible cases that just happen to be stacked up against the one person.
These are things that candidates will do, and I don't think that it's the moderator should challenge them on their reaction to the other candidate. But what I just sometimes wonder, everyone knows that the withdrawal from Afghanistan was an absolute atrocity. How much more foresighted would it have been if Vice President Harris had said, we really wanted to get out of there? Three other presidents had tried. It hadn't been done. We thought that we could get out of there safely. We misestimated that, and I have to live with it, and the president has to live with it. It would have shown at least some humility, which people might, start to think, wow, maybe this person could run the country.
That's a very powerful statement, Governor Patterson. And you're right, because there was no acknowledgement. That's where actually I do wish the moderator had come in and said, do you regret? Did you make some mistakes? Clearly. That would have been an interesting moment. Hang on a second, please. It would have been interesting to hear the moderator say to Vice President Harris, what would you, after she did her kind of generic spin, they didn't come back at her. And I actually agree with you, Governor Patterson. That would have been a very powerful moment if she said, we obviously made some horrible mistakes. 13 service members lost their lives. I would have loved for her to say their names. As opposed to her chastising
you would have
President
liked
Trump.
to give her a not as good an answer. Donald Trump's answer was a meandering list, some guy named Abdul he was talking about, and they didn't do this, they didn't do this, they didn't do this. He didn't respond to the fact, and it's a fact, that he pressured our Afghan partners to release 5,000
Guess what?
Taliban.
Donald Trump wasn't president during the withdrawal.
Yes, during
Give
the
me a break.
the release of the 5,000 Taliban fighters.
I said at the moment of the withdrawal, who was president?
Rita,
I'm asking you a question.
Rita,
yes or no?
I'm going to give you the answer right now. Ready?
You're spinning like Kamala Harris.
The 5,000 released Taliban fighters killed those are Trump released hostages.
I'm asking you at the moment of the withdrawal, who was president?
Joe Biden.
Okay, thank you, Ed Cox. Go ahead, Ed Cox.
How many American soldiers were killed in the 2 years after he made that deal with the Taliban?
There were 50 killed under Trump, 13 under Biden.
No, 0 were killed under Trump during that period. 0. You've got your facts wrong.
That's
Anthony.
not true.
Get 'em right.
The 13 were killed by Taliban fighters Donald Trump released after he offered to meet them on the anniversary of September 11th. That is a sin, and as a New Yorker, you should say so.
Hang on one second. You're saying the 13. You're claiming the 13.
Yes.
Guess who they were killed by? They were killed.
Taliban fighters.
Just a moment.
That were released by Donald Trump. That's terrible, isn't it,
Hang on one
Rita?
second. You're thinking, obviously, if that were the case, it would be, but that is not the case.
At least
They were killed by ISIS-K.
Hang on. Yes, exactly. You're speaking.
ISIS-K,
just a
not
moment
by
here.
Taliban.
You're
Get
speaking
your
of
facts
the
right.
13.
Taliban overran the Afghan government. You know why?
Just
Because
a
the Afghan
moment.
government wasn't included by Donald Trump when they
Now
released
you're
the
skipping
Taliban
around.
fighters.
You're avoiding the facts. You're skipping around from false fact to false fact. Now you're going on.
Who's responsible
now
for the
you're
fall
sk-
of
now you're
Afghanistan?
skipping-
Donald Trump.
Joe Biden and Kamala
Donald
Harris, because
Trump.
they
You're
were
skipping
in the
around
There are
now.
20. How
Anthony.
many troops were left in Afghanistan when Donald Trump left office? 2,500.
And guess how many his generals wanted to stay? Joe Biden's, all the generals testified they wanted 2,500 to stay. Excuse me, hold on a second.
Donald Trump announced on
Excuse
Twitter
me.
that we were going to have all of our troops out by Christmas.
Yeah, on conditions that were not
No,
met.
he just
yes,
said-
it was.
he just said they're all
yes,
gonna
it
be out
was.
by Christmas.
Hang on one second. Hold
Obviously,
on.
the
Just a
generals
moment.
protected us from Donald Trump because he's an incompetent fool.
Just
so he
a
protected
moment.
us.
Just a moment. I have to correct you because the 13 that were killed by, guess what? To Ed Cox's point,
ISIS-K.
it was an ISIS-K. And guess who it
by
was?
Taliban.
It was someone who was let out Bagram under Joe Biden. He left Bagram high and dry. Have you been to Bagram, Anthony Weiner?
Yes, I have.
So have I.
Who overran the Afghan government in a matter of hours? The Taliban.
And guess who thought they wouldn't? Joe Biden. Hang on one
Where
second.
was Donald Trump tonight saying any of this?
He should have been, and I
Okay,
agree.
thank
Maybe
you.
if the moderators let him in.
We're doing a debate wrap-up
Yes,
show, and
I agree.
And we have you guys have to mop up after Donald Trump because he was an incoherent mess tonight.
Because you're making the same lies that Kamala Harris did. Go ahead, Ed Cox.
He made the basic statement, pulling out of Afghanistan was a huge mistake. He's right. He made the mistake that what they did, and she skipped right over that one. She skipped over the fact that it was her administration and she cast the deciding vote that created the 9% inflation.
Let him speak.
Where 2/3 of the people that paycheck to paycheck are suffering. And there, in the end, he was talking to the voters. He was talking about immigration, illegal immigration, same thing. She skipped over that topic. The most important topics to the voters: peace in the world, inflation, more than their wages, and also with respect to illegal immigration. She skipped all of those. Those are the things that the voters.
No, she didn't. She gave the answer about that she would sign the deal that was worked out by Republicans and Democrats, and she listed what that deal was: 1,500 new border officers, 150 new judges, a fentanyl screening. She said what she would actually do going forward
Then
because
let me
she's the
ask you a
forward-looking
question.
candidate. She
I get
did
what
answer
you're
the
saying. I
question.
get what you're saying.
You can't change the history. She did answer that question.
But-
Donald Trump did not answer the question. Why did he kill the deal? Ed Cox, why
'Cause it was
did he
a bad
kill that
deal.
deal? In that case, let him articulate
He
that.
ki-
You would be better on the stage by far tonight than
Thank
he
you,
was.
Anthony. Thank you. I'm glad I have your support.
Let me answer the question.
You added,
The answer is, how many would that deal have permitted in each year? Give me the number.
Incorrect. They were not permitted anyone in.
It would have permitted
5,000 a
two-
day.
No.
5,000 a day or
to-
2 million a year.
in order-
it would
no.
have been, and you're assuming it would have been enforced, and the present laws were not
The
enforced by
president
Biden.
does not have shutdown authority. If 1 million comes in overnight, there's no such thing as presidential authority to shut a border. This would have given it to them, something you guys say you wanted. Your most conservative guy negotiated this deal. Donald Trump killed it, as Kamala Harris said tonight, killed it because he wanted an issue, because he doesn't care about the country. He just cares about his issue.
Okay, that is a
nice
bunch
try,
of hogwash.
but
Go ahead.
Biden opened the border completely, and she was the czar of the border, and we had more than 10 million illegal immigrants who came in, and then when they saw it was hurting them politically, they shut the border down because they could do it.
Are here lawfully. The law needs to be changed.
Yeah, why don't we make them all legal and let's have them vote, right? Because that's what you want. That's what you want. Because 198 Democrats wanted to have non-citizens vote.
Change the asylum laws.
We're gonna have-
that. Congress does.
All right, we're going to have to take a break. Act like a president, because that's what Joe Biden could have done. He's had 3.5 years, and he hasn't done it. We're going to go to a break. Boy, this is spirited. I love this show. We're
Let's
going to have
stay
much
until 2 or
more
3 o'clock.
after the break with the Rita Cosby Show with this great team.